Okay, so I'm doing a walkthrough of the Try Hack Me room. What is it? Post-Exploit. Originally, I was just going to do the BloodHound part of that because that's the only part that doesn't really work right. But I thought some people might have issues with some of the other parts of it. So let me just go ahead and we'll do the whole thing together, like old friends. So open up my web browser. There we go. And we go to Try Hack Me. And I'm already logged in. And you see I've already actually been working on there. Let me go ahead and click here. Let me go ahead and I can reset the room. There we go. I can reset progress. So just gets rid of whatever I've already done. Now, I don't know if it'll let me start the machine. I'm not connected right now. For those of you that don't know, you got to click on Access Machines. And you can either fire up their attack box, which is a virtual machine that they have. I don't know if everything works right in the attack box or not. But I'm not going to do that. I use OpenVPN. And I'm going to download for Linux. Actually, I already have it downloaded. So I would just click here. And I'm not going to save it because I already have it. And then if you didn't have OpenVPN, but if you have a Kali box, you already have OpenVPN. And then you go to your downloads folder, and then you just run sudo OpenVPN, blah, blah, blah. You should know this, but hey, in case you don't. So sudo OpenVPN downloads. So remember the tilde is my home directory. Under my home directory is a folder called downloads. And in there is the unclegary.openvpn. Ask for my sudo password. Boom, ba-da-doom. Bob's your uncle. I'm in, right? And if I file new tab, right? I always like to leave that running in its own tab so I can go check it later. But if I do IP-A to view my IP address, you'll see now here's my loopback address, right? Which is always a software address of 127.0.0.1. This is my Ethernet 0, which is your standard Ethernet, virtual Ethernet device on your VM. So this is what VMware is giving me. And then this is my tunnel, which I just set up between me and TryHackMe. And this is the IP address that they gave me, 10.2.33.86. I have a little script that actually also shows it up there, which is a very handy thing to do if you Google, display, or excuse me, run script in Kali taskbar. You'll find explanations on how to do things like that. But that is really nice. So whenever I open up a VPN tunnel, that IP address is there so I can see it. All right, so now I am connected to their network. So I can click Start Machine. And then it says, hey, do you want to connect? Well, I am already connected, so get off my back. Now, one thing is, it does say here, this machine can take up to 10 minutes to boot. It doesn't, in my experience, but it can take a few minutes. So let's take a little bit of time to talk about Active Directory. So Active Directory is how, in a Windows network, everything is managed, right? All of your computers, your servers, your user accounts, your group accounts, your services, right? They're all registered with the Active Directory controller. So the controller says, okay, these are the ones that I know about. And then from there, you can set group policy in order to enforce rules. Okay, everybody who's a member of, the users group has these permissions. Everybody who's a member of the admins group has these permissions. So you can configure all that from the Active Directory controller, which makes everything manageable. It's also a big point of attack. So they call this the post-exploitation room. They should call it the Active Directory room, because that's what we're doing is this assumes that you have compromised a Windows machine in an Active Directory environment. So what do you want to do? What does a bad guy want to do once they've compromised a machine? Well, I always tell students you should be aware of the attack matrix, the MITRE attack matrix, right? This is a really good starting point for kind of understanding what does an attack look like. And there's a lot. So there's actually a little scroll bar here. So there's a lot more than even just what it shows you. And this is, things like, reconnaissance right before you attack, resource development, getting that initial access and code execution, that is getting, phishing somebody into clicking on a link, or phishing somebody, getting their user account information, being able to execute code on their machine. So when you're doing these root to boot type challenges, right, and you do like the Nmap scan, that's reconnaissance. You figure out, oh, it's vulnerable to this, and you download that proof of concept code and you run it in order to get a reverse shell. That's execution. Then you escalate your privileges to either become administrator or root, right, depending on Windows or Linux. That is privilege escalation. And then these other parts of the attack come in, right? That's what we're really looking at with this post-exploitation room. So we're looking at persistence. How do I stay in there? So maybe somebody comes in and they clear out my malware that I've installed, but how do I stay in there? Do I add user accounts? Do I, change permissions so that, compromised accounts I can come back in? Lateral movement. How do I move from this machine to another machine? So I'm on this Windows machine. How do I move to the domain controller and attack that? How do I move to another Windows machine? Discovery. What is there? Again, Active Directory has everything that's part of the Windows network there. So discovery is a really important part of it. So all of those things, which aren't part of your standard root to boot type challenges, but are a really important part of an actual attack. That's kind of what you do through your Active Directory attacks, which is what we're looking at here. So again, this assumes that you already have root level access on a local machine. So I started the machine, they gave me an IP address, click up here to copy that bad boy, click here, completed, I have deployed the machine. Yay, I've started a streak. All right, so we're gonna start with enumeration with PowerView. They give us a couple ways to connect to it. They give me the machine IP, the username is administrator, the password is password, the domain is controller. All that information is very useful. I can RDP or SSH into the machine. I'm going to start with SSH. No, let's do RDP. So RDP, so SSH, you should all know, that's the secure shell. That's not standard on Windows, so they have installed that on this Windows machine. It is standard on Linux. In Windows, typically, if we're able to get remote access to a machine, it's through RDP or Remote Desktop Protocol. And we have this handy rdesktop command that Kali Linux has built in there to give us a little window and everything. And when I do rdesktop, I do a couple of things. Let's do history type rep rdesktop type tail-5. So these are the last 5 rdesktops that I've done. So I always put in a certain size. 800 by 600 is pretty typical. I'll make this one a little bit bigger because I'm sharing it with you guys. But if you don't do that, sometimes you get a screen that's bigger than your VM screen, and it becomes kind of difficult to navigate. So specifying the pixel size with the -G option is really handy. And then I always do the clipboard, right? The -R, I think it's just options. But you always want to do that so you can cut and paste back and forth from your attacking machine to the target machine. So we're going to do our desktop -G. Let's do 1000 by 800. We'll make it a little bit bigger. -R clipboard. And then I'm going to paste in the IP address. Remember to paste into the terminal. It's Control-Shift-V. And then the first time you connect, it's going to say, "Are you sure do you trust this?" And I'm going to say, "Yes, with all my heart, I trust it." So it establishes the SSL connection. And I get here. So this is the domain controller, right? What I want you to notice, so I'm logging in here, and it says domain control. This is the name of the machine. But if we go back here, it says that the domain name is controller. So I don't know if I can paste it actually yet. I don't think it'll let me. Nah, it won't. It won't let me paste it. But I know that the domain name is controller. Right, so now I'm logging into the domain. And I'm not logging in as Kali. I'm logging in as administrator. And then the password was capital P at $, capital W 0RD. Okay, so it's letting me in. Okay, and eventually I get to a Windows 10 desktop. I'm going to take this and kind of drag it over here so it's a little bit easier to see both what I'm doing and the screen. So this is the information on how to connect, and then it starts telling you about PowerView. So there are lots of tools for looking at the Active Directory environment, right, from a command line or through PowerShell, right? There's a million different things. It would be a lot for anybody who's not kind of an expert to memorize all of them. So you're much better off using something like PowerView, which is a PowerShell script that somebody wrote that has a bunch of commands that are already set that will grab you the information that usually you want, right? I want to list things like users. I want to know what users are domain admins. I want to know what users are part of the remote desktop group, right? Because those are people, those are accounts that if I compromise them, I might be able to jump over to those machines. So I want to grab that information. PowerView makes that easy. Again, I can find all that information manually, or I can write my own PowerShell scripts to do that. But why? When we have PowerView. Let me go ahead and I'm going to go back here. Let me move this again. Scroll up a little bit. And then go here. I'm going to click on the search. And I'm going to type in CMD. And that will show me a command prompt. Okay. And because this is an administrator account, and remember, we assume that at this point that you have administrator access, I'm going to right-click and run as administrator. Right, so then I get this prompt. And by the way, fun little trick. So if I do who am I, it says who I am. Okay, if I do who am I /priv, it will show all of the privileges that I have. Now, because I'm an administrator, I have a lot of them. Disabled doesn't mean that I have it. It means I'm not using it. Oh, this is interesting. It's not showing me normally down at the bottom, I don't know why this one isn't showing me this. Down at the bottom, it has a little thing that says, okay, this session running at mandatory high level or mandatory medium level. When I right click and do run as administrator, it runs it as mandatory high level. I don't know why it's not showing me that here. I can also see what groups I belong to. Who am I / groups? Right, see all the groups. Oh, who am I? This is what shows me mandatory label, high mandatory label. That says that this particular shell is running at a high level. This shows all the groups I belong to, most importantly, administrators. I can also find out about other users on the local system. If I do net users, right, it will show me, okay, these are the local accounts on this machine. So there's a second admin, there's a guest account, which is probably disabled, machine 1, machine 2. This is the Kerberos ticket. We're going to get into that later. If I want to see the users on the domain, I do net users / domain. Right? So this shows me all of the users on the domain, which is the same because I'm on the domain controller. If you were on a Windows, like a workstation, those wouldn't match. If I do net groups, same thing. I can see the groups. And again, there's also the net groups domain, but it's going to be the same because I'm on the domain controller. So those are some manual ways that you can look at what's connected to the domain, but we are going to use PowerView. So if I do dir, we can see, wait a minute, I'm in C users admin. Where do they have PowerShell? Oh, it's under downloads. Gotcha. All right, so I'm going to run PowerShell -EP. Actually, I'm not going to do EP. I'm going to do PowerShell. And now I'm in PowerShell. And if I was to just jump to number 2 there, right, /downloads PowerView. Oh, apparently it worked. But what this is saying, the dot says, hey, I want you to source this. I'm going to give you a PowerShell file, and I want you to put it as if you had typed in the whole thing yourself. Typically, this will be blocked. Get, I don't know why I typed that in. Execution policy. So the execution policy is automatically set to bypass. Typically, that's set to restricted. And what that means is you cannot execute scripts by default for security reasons, which makes sense, right? So this one is automatically set to bypass. That's what this -EP bypass means there, which means probably a bunch of people were forgetting that and getting it wrong and not realizing it. So they just went in and changed the policy. So if they didn't, what you would do is set execution policy bypass. And that would, if you're in a PowerShell prompt, and you know I'm in a PowerShell prompt because I got the little PS right there. But that would allow me to change it to bypass. If I ever said, hey, you can't run the script, permission, whatever, that would be the first thing I would do. So now everything that's in PowerView is available to me. So start with, one other thing. If you're not familiar with PowerShell, PowerShell has this standard format of a verb and then a noun. So this is get execution policy. The verb is get execution policy, the noun. This is set execution policy, right? Same thing over here, get net user, right? So get net user, and it gives me all of the net users, all of the users on the network, which we saw before, but it's giving me all of the information that Active Directory has for each of those users. Now, we don't want all that information. I'm going to take you through it in a second, but we only want their name, so we can pipe, that's a straight up and down bar, into select, and select is a Windows tool for only grabbing one of these values. And we're going to select on CN. So if we look here, CN, which is, I believe, common name. So the common name title is here, and the value is for that one is SSHD. So I do that eventually. Yep. There we go. I don't know why it kind of froze up there. But so now I'm only getting the name. So I've gotten the names of all the people: administrator, guest, Kerberos, machine 1, admin 2. So again, oh, look at this. That seemed a little interesting. File that for later. And that would be kind of the first thing you would do in examining a domain, is look for things that are interesting. People with names that look like flags, people with names that look like services, machine names, admin names. Those are all things that we want to investigate. Let me go back here. Right. Let me briefly, I'm going to go back up and look at all the user information here. And it doesn't separate it really well in this format. But let's go look at administrator. There you go. Let's look at admin 2 here, right? So this is admin 2. So there's a lot of other information here. How many times they logged in, how long, if they give you a bad password, do they get logged out? Their distinguished name, right? Admin 2, they're part of users, part of the domain control, part of local. Object class, their display name, their user principal name, their SSID, which is a unique identifier object. Fun fact, this part of the SSID identifies the domain. So you can use that for other things later on. Their account type. So you can look up the different SAM account types. You don't have to, because PowerView does this for you. But so this is a user account type. That's going to be a different number if it's a machine, or a different number if it's a service. When do they change the password? Country code. Given name. The groups that they are a member of. The last time they logged in. Again, there's their CN, their common name. Their primary group ID, what group they primarily belong to. That is the first, when they create stuff, what group does it belong to? Yada, yada, yada. So all that information is available for all the users, but we don't normally want that, which is why we pipe it into select. Okay. And then we can enumerate the groups with this command here. So get -net group. By the way, in PowerShell, you can use tab to autocomplete, right? And just keep hitting tab until it gives you the one you want. So get net group dash group name. I don't know if I can autocomplete that. Yeah, I can autocomplete that. So group name that contains admin. So these are all the groups that contain admin. So there's administrators, Hyper-V administrators, storage replica administrators, schema admins, enterprise admins, domain admins, key admins, enterprise key admins. So key admins, enterprise key admins, that's like more advanced stuff. Domain admins is a really good one, because that means you have access to the domain controller. Administrators is usually going to be the local, only means anything on the local one. Domain admins would be the one that might give you access to other machines on the domain, or it could be enterprise admins. They have a cheat sheet with help. Oh, why does it do that? This isn't a cheat sheet at all. So obviously PowerView can do a whole lot of things, right? PowerView can do many things. So this is a bunch of common commands. I think, let's see, PowerView You cheat sheet. I think there's a better one than that out there. That's the same one. There we go. Hack tricks. So here's a bunch of PowerShell, quick enumeration. Get the domain, right? Get net domain. Let's try that. Get net domain. Oops. So this is domain information. This is the forest it belongs to, the domain controller. There's only one domain controller. Domain mode level 7, that tells you whether it is like a server 2016, server 2003, whatever. I can get different accounts based upon different things here. Kerberoast is a type of attack that we can use against service accounts. So if I do get net user -spn, right, so these are the service accounts, which potentially could be attacked through a technique called Kerberoasting, which I think we'll get to later on. But anyways, lots of different things, find the different computers. Let's do that one now. That is important information that I want to know. So here I'm going to do G, Control V. Maybe it's not letting me copy it. Eventually. All right, I guess I'll just have to do it manually. Like a savage. Get net computer. And then pipe it into select SAM account name. Put a space there in case that matters. Operating system. All right, so it didn't give me any information. Let's get rid of the select and see if it works. I might have misspelled it when I selected. Okay, so it did give me computers. I don't know why it wasn't, the select wasn't working. But it's just showing me that there's a domain controller and then there's 2 desktops in this domain. It's a small domain. There's only a couple computers. So now we can find out information about this domain by poking around. Let's look at their questions here, right? What is the shared folder that is not set by default? All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over here and Google or search. I wish they would just make this the right size. There we go. Find in page shared files and folder. So I can, let's try this one. Get net file server. I don't think this will work, but let's give it a try. See if it'll let me paste now. So there's no network file server, which makes sense. Let's search for readable shares. So I guess find domain share is not part of it. Let's see. Find. Yeah. So there's no find in this version of PowerView. How about here? For shared. Nope, doesn't seem to be finding anything. Let's try share. Invoke file finder. Yeah, didn't find anything. So I'm willing at this point to just say, hey, well, let me give you a hint. Oh, invoke share finder. There we go. I was on the right track. All right. So you can see, obviously, these ones all have names associated with the shared, except for /share. So that seems to be the one that is not default. So let's do share, click submit. There we go. Actually, let me look here. Let's do okay. That's annoying because that is not in their tips in their one. Let's see if it's here. Control F, share. So I don't know if invoke share finder is the old way or which one is wrong. But there's definitely, again, and this is what I'm saying. This is not a straightforward one all the time. Some of the things that they want you to do don't work right. What operating system is running inside the network besides Windows Server 2019, right? Well, we know the computers here, right? But when we did the getNet computer, it wasn't showing us operating systems. And by the way, the server 2019 should be the current machine that I'm on. So let's go over here and try, let's see, operating. See, this was the one, so getNet computer was supposed to show us all the information about the computer. But let's see if I do, can we find any other examples of operating? That's the only one there. Control F. No instance of operating here. PowerView list computers. Let's see what Google has. Get domain computer. Okay, so I did get net computer. Let's try that. Get domain computer. No, that's something that's part of PowerSploit. PowerSploit includes PowerView, but it has a bunch of other ones. That's interesting. So let's go back here again. Not too proud. So getNet computer apparently has a dash full data option. Get net computer dash full data. So now for all those computers, it gives me everything. So if we go back up to my original select by SAM account name operating system, now I know I have to do the dash full data. So now it tells me, okay, this is the SAM account name and this is the operating system. So Windows 10 Enterprise Evaluation. So I'm going to right click to copy that and then go back here and then right click and paste. Click submit. There we go. I've hidden a flag inside the user signed it. Well, we kind of found that earlier, right? When we did the get net user select CN, right? This looks awfully like a flag. So again, I'm going to right click to copy that and then go here and paste. Click submit. Yay! Woo! Okay. So boom, this works. Right? We have enumerated with PowerView, and it's kind of frustrating because the commands don't work exactly right, and the documentation is not great. But you can kind of see, I don't know why this is kind of out of date. I don't know what's out of date, the PowerView version that we're using or these directions. But you can see there's a lot of stuff we can get here. We can find out, a whole bunch of information about groups. We can get all the information about a particular username. So I can do get net user. There we go. So apparently there's no information about that user. But we can find all the information about admin2. And again, we got to this before with net user. But this is another way of doing it, and it's with PowerShell because we can pipe it into select, pipe it into other filters, and like do regular expression matching. We can really customize what we're looking for, right? We can see who's logged on. We can see the shared files. We can look at the group policy objects and organizational units. See who has what permissions. See who's allowed to access different things. All kinds of things. So we can map out our domain using PowerView. Next, we're going to do the same thing, except instead of using PowerView, we're going to map it out using BloodHound. Right? So we're gonna do it through BloodHound, which again is a little bit different because it is because they don't have the most recent version on the system. But we're going to cut to another little video that explains that right now. These are the directions for enumerating a Active Directory with BloodHound. The problem is they say apt-get install BloodHound, and let's go here. So if I wanted to check and see, okay, what is the current version of BloodHound? That is apt-cache Madison BloodHound. So this is how you can see what versions are available. So, and if you spell it right, it'll show you what you want. So this shows you that the only one available for Kali is 4.1.0. So if you follow the directions here and install that, just do apt-get install BloodHound, you're going to end up with a version of BloodHound that is not compatible. And does it show you here in SharpHound what version it is? Okay, it doesn't seem to show you, but I have it on good authority from somebody who works at TryHackMe that it is actually version 3. So they have version 3 here. So what I need to do is I need to get version 3 on my computer, and you can see that is not available through your traditional install method. So I have to kind of do it old school. So if I Google BloodHound, you can see I already looked this stuff up, and oh, I get cute little dogs. All right, that's not what I want. So why don't I check out GitHub and see what they have there? Okay, this looks a little bit better. So this is, if I wanted, again, the latest release, I could pull it from here, but A, I don't want to compile anything, if possible. And B, I don't want the latest release. The latest release does not work. So I might look here for different branches, right? View all branches. But again, this is just going to show me where I can compile, or I can grab the source code and compile it myself. That is not what I want. So I'm going to try going up the chain here. Okay, so here's BloodHound, SharpHound. This takes me back here. Here we have BloodHound releases. Okay, this looks promising. Okay, so this is the rolling release, the unstable. This is 4.1. Okay, so this looks like these are past releases. BloodHound 3.0. So this is version 3. This should work. 3.4. Let's try 3.05 and look at the assets here. So these are all pre-compiled, except I guess I can get the source code. But again, I don't want to compile anything. So I have to do this for the particular architecture. So is it 64-bit or 32-bit? And it is, in all likelihood, just going to be Linux. This is for an ARM. So like if you had a Raspberry Pi, you'd probably be using this one. This is probably going to be the one that's most likely to work on my system. So I'm going to clickety click click. Okay, so it should have downloaded by now. So if I go over here, if I do, ls, and I look in my download folder, we see that it is there. It is a zip file. I could just unzip this locally on my machine. I would probably want to put it in opt. For those of you that ever wondered, hey, what is the purpose of that /opt directory? This is what it is. It's for software that's not necessarily part of the regular install system. So I know where to go to if I want to delete it or change it or update it or whatever. So I'm going to sudo move downloads BloodHound to /opt. I'll type the password right this time. And if I do sudo unzip okay, so I should have everything that I want there. All right, so let's go back and take a look at the directions from try-hack-me. So it had do apt-get install BloodHound, which we can't do. Then it has Neo4j console to start up Neo4j. What is Neo4j? It is a graph data platform, right? So looks like it's something that will draw nice, pretty graphs on our screen, which is what we want when we're examining Active Directory. So let's go back here. And I don't know if that's something that should already be installed or if that was coming with BloodHound. So let's try that. Neo4j console. Says it's not installed. Do I want to install it? I'm not sure. So I'm going to do no for now. So let me look in BloodHound to see if I can find Neo4j in there. So if we do find dash name, find /opt BloodHound dash name Neo4j. So it doesn't look like it's in there. So it looks like it's separate from BloodHound. So it should just work ideally. Nope, if I just install it. All right. Now we're getting somewhere. It's unpacking it. It's good. Okay. So now let's try it. It's giving me all kinds of errors. I'm probably going to assume that's because I don't have root permissions. So let's do sudo double exclamation point. For those of you that don't know, double exclamation point will repeat the last command you did. So it says it started. It says that there's a remote interface available. It's telling me, oh, so it's saying Bolt enabled on localhost on this one. And this is a interface of it. So I could probably, actually, let's try localhost colon, and that was 7687 was Bolt. See what that gives us. That gets me nothing because that's the Bolt one. So let's try 7474. 7474. Okay, so this connects me to the Neo4j, and per their directions here, your credentials are Neo4j, Neo4j. If I need to log in, so let's try that. Neo4j, Neo4j. Click connect. Don't save. Okay, it's making me change the password the first time. I don't know why they do this because you're only going to have these on your local machines, but whatever. How about my traditional password, capital P at SSWZRD, capital P at SSWZRD, and change the password. Okay, so I'm connected. All right, I don't want to do anything with it right now, but I know it's working, which is good. So I did that. Then they get the loot. We're actually going to skip that part. Well, actually, no, I'll come back to that later. I want to get BloodHound going. It says run BloodHound on your attacker machine. Because I already have this going here, I'm going to leave that. And I'm going to open up a new tab. BloodHound. And let's see if it will let me. What is that file? That is executable. It is executable. So let's try BloodHound. Okay, there we go. So it wants the database username, which is Neo4j, but we changed the password to capital P at SSWZRD. And click log on. Let's try typing Neo4j. There we go. So now I have BloodHound running correctly. So now what I have to do is go back here and generate those files. And hopefully the files that are generated by this SharpHound that's there will match the version of BloodHound that I got right here. Okay, so now that we have everything installed correctly, let's actually go and collect the data, and then we have to get it onto our attacker machine, onto Kali. And then we will look at it and map out our domain using BloodHound. Let me go ahead and add an hour here. There we go. So, again, this has to be used SharpHound. There's SharpHound PS1, and then there's an executable out there. I don't think they have this one here. Let me go ahead. I'm already in PowerShell. Do ls downloads. So there we see SharpHound.ps1. So they're going to have us source it, which is the right? And then / is my current directory, downloads, and then the name of the PowerShell file. So I'm saying, hey, as if I typed all that in, because that's just a bunch of functions that are then available to me. And we will start it with invoke BloodHound, collection method all, which means get all the information, the domain, which we know the name of the domain because we've seen it earlier, and then the output, the zip file name is loot.zip. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do / downloads sharphound. Right, it's all loaded up. Then I'm just going to copy pasta. Right click. And then here, V. So see, it says status 0 objects finished, status 66 objects finished. It's done. It does this weird thing where it's done, but I don't have my command prompt back. And when I hit enter, it's like in the middle of the screen. It's just the way it is. But now if I do ls, we see loot, and then it's got this number on the front of it. I assume that has to do with like the date or whatever when you generate it, but it's there. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to Control-C to copy that. So now I have to get it onto my local machine. There's a couple ways I could do that. Now, this has SSH, so I can use secure copy. Matter of fact, I'm going to show you both ways of doing it, just so you know both ways of doing it. So we know the SSH here, and we know that we know the username and password, and we know the location of this file. So if I was to do scp copy file, right? There's plenty of different tutorials on how to use scp. The gist of it is scp options, and then user at source host : file, and user destination file, right? That's the gist of it. So if I go here, I'm going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to make a directory BloodHound TMP. So I'm in here so I can copy it to here. So again, it's scp options. I'm not going to do any options yet. User at the source host : the file. So my user is administrator at, and my host is, if we go back here, that's my IP address. So Control-Shift-V to paste that in, : and now the file. I think I should be able to do, so if I SSH in, it automatically takes me to C users administrator. So I think I can start from there. So I think I could just do / or no. Yeah, I think it takes me to the same directory I'm in here. So I think I can just give it the name of the loot file. Let me do Control-C with that. Go back here, Control-Shift-V to paste it in. So that's the remote file, and that's the source, and the destination is going to be right here. So I'm just going to call it loot.zip, and I'm going to call it loot1.zip right here. And hopefully it'll prompt me for a password. So it says, hey, do you want to trust this? This is SSH saying this. I say yes. What's the password? And that password was capital P at $ capital W 0RD. And remember, if Linux doesn't tell you anything, it seems to work out fine. So there's the file loot.zip. If I do ls-l, you'll see that this is 9528, which is the same size it is there. I could do a hash to make sure that everything was correct, but it seems to be okay. So secure copy, if SSH is available, that's a great way to get files to and from a Windows machine. It often is not available. So there's another tool you have for transferring files to Windows, and it's SMB client, right? So man SMB client. So this is an FTP like asset to SMB servers. You know, and Linux they're called Samba servers. You can set them up, but this is the default Windows share environment, right? It is a little complicated, but if you just do SMB client example, you'll find a million different examples. And the gist of it is you're almost always just giving it, I wish I could get to an example here, instead of a recreation of the man page. So to access it, it is SMB client, and then it is actually / and then the IP address of the target machine, right? So we'll copy that. However, because it's a Linux command line, it's going to interpret a / as an escape character. So we have to escape our / and then escape it again. And then the same thing here, because we have to list the share that we're going to connect to, which is C $, which again is the default share, and then -u, and then the name of the account we're going to connect as administrator. And then it's going to ask for a password, capital P at $ W0RD. And boom, we are here. If I do ls, right, we can see all the stuff. So if I go to cd users, and then cd administrator, we see, oh, up here, you can see this loot.zip file. And I could do get 2022 loot.zip, and it got it. Now I quit. So now I have two copies of the same file, basically. So that's two different ways you can get it. You can get it either by using secure copy or by using SMB client. It is very useful to get used to using SMB client. So now I have it. Now I need to fire up BloodHound. And if I go back here, all right, we're moving along. So I've collected the information. Now I transfer it to your attacker machine. Now we have to run BloodHound, right? Before, you might already have it up. I did the video earlier, so I kind of stopped it. So I have to actually cd into opt into BloodHound, and now from here, if I do /BloodHound, boom, I get this, and my database was Neo4j, and I've already forgotten what password I put on here. I think it was just password. Oh, I need to start the Neo4j console. So let me go back here and stop that. I forgot about that. So let me do Alt-H. Ooh, no, Alt-H. Start a new half of the thing and do Neo4j. Let's do this. History pipe grep Neo4j. Apparently I've never run Neo4j. But I remember it was I thought the directions were in here. They were right here. Neo4j console. Neo, and I think I need to do a sudo Neo4j console. Okay, so now it's starting the backend database. So now if I start BloodHound, now it's got a little check mark saying, okay, I found it. And the username was Neo4j, and I think I made it password. See if that works. No. Then try capital P at SSW0RD, because I do that as my default password a lot. You just watch the video. There we go. Boom, bada boom, 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 boom. Now, there's nothing here. I'm going to hit the little square box to unmaximize it. So you should be able to import graphs from here. I've actually had a lot of trouble using this. I much prefer to drag it in. That seems to work better, just drag it onto the desktop. So if I go here to the file manager, and I just go from there to BloodHound temp, and if I just grab it and drag it over, it's processing the file, boom, bada boom, thinking about it, finish processing all files. So I have database info. And this is the thing, if you didn't use the old version of BloodHound, this is where you'd be running into a problem because it wouldn't show you any of this information because it wouldn't correctly import it. So we can see all this information here. I can click on node info. I have to select a node for that. So I can see that there's 9 users, there's 3 computers, which is what we saw earlier. Right, there's 53 groups. I can click over here on queries, and these are a bunch of built-in queries that are very common for mapping out a domain. Hey, find all domain admins. Makes sense. I want to know who's the domain admin, right? And if I kind of zoom out a little bit and scroll over, I can see, all right, so there's administrator, which is me, admin 2, right, SQL service. So if I can compromise SQL service, I have a domain admin account. Find shortest path to domain admins, map domain trusts. That is, do we trust other domains that we can copy things from? List all Kerber roastable accounts. Again, Kerber roasting is an attack. So notice this SQL service is a Kerber roastable account. This is Kerberos, so that's a Kerber roastable account. Now notice this one is a domain admin. So that means I could potentially crack the password of SQL service, and then I have access to a domain admin account. That's the kind of thing I can see in BloodHound as it maps everything out. So BloodHound is very useful for that. So let's go back here. So we are rocking and a rolling, right? Final or as complicated as shortest path to high value targets. That gets really complicated. What service is also a domain admin? That's the one I was just telling you about. SQL service. Click submit. What 2 users are Kerber roastable? That's the other thing I was just telling you about. KRBTGT, which, like I said, that's the actual Kerberos service, and SQL service. So let's do SQL service, KR, KRBTGT. See what takes it. There we go. But again, I can find out a whole bunch of other information in here. Find computers where domain users are local admin, right? There's none of those, right? But that's a really important one. Any domain user account is local admin on this computer. Then here, we're going to take a look at Mimikatz, which allows us to generate, or find tickets. I can use that to be a local admin on other machines and then move laterally to those machines. Shortest path to high-value targets. Right, this is that complicated one. So it shows me, okay, you know what? This is a high-value target. This is the actual domain controller. Here are ways that we can make change. So I could, if I compromise any members of this administrator's group, right? And then what other would also give me access to enterprise admins. So I could start looking at this and saying, okay, what accounts do I want to try to compromise here, right? Or what machines? So there might be a machine here that's a member of a group that might give me access to, this account or those other groups. So this gets kind of complicated, but I could go through this and find a lot of attack avenues. List Kerberosable members of high-value groups. And, okay, this is SQL, because this is Kerberosable, and these are the high-value groups it's a member of: administrators, enterprise admins, domain admins, group policy creators, right? Group policy means that you can change the rules of the network. You can give people permissions. So a lot of information that I can get from BloodHound here. So BloodHound is really, really cool and really, really powerful. Okay, so we are going to, let's go ahead and close that. I closed BloodHound. We don't need that. Boom, bada boom. All right, so now we're taking a look at Mimikatz, right? So in Windows, hashes are actually stored in memory in things called tickets. Let me give you kind of a brief explanation. Kerberos ticket process. Computer, bring up an image. Let's see. So basically, you log in, right? And you request a ticket granting ticket. So you send something to the domain controller that says, hey, I am who I am, right? And I would like this, a ticket granting ticket. So it's a ticket I'm going to send back to you over and over again to get permission to access things. And they send you a ticket granting ticket plus a session key. Typically, the session key is good for 12 hours, I believe. Then when you want something, so if you want to go to print on a print server, or you want to access a file in a file server or anything like that, you'll send back that you're going to request a ticket with your authorization. Your authorization is your ticket granting ticket and your session key. And then they're going to send you back a ticket for that one service with a session key for that one service. Then you're going to send that to the resource server, and the resource server is going to say, yes, you can, or no, you can't. So each of these tickets have your username and your groups and all the encrypted in it. So the resource server is going to check that encrypted ticket and say, oh, yeah, you do, it's going to decrypt it. And it's going to look at it and say, oh, yeah, you do have access to this service, or no, you don't. So all these tickets that you have are actually stored in memory. And in fact, if I go here in PowerShell, I think I could do klist, and it shows me the tickets that I currently have active. So right now I just have one as administrator, right? Because I haven't done anything, there's nobody else logged on to the system. if other people were logged on, I would see their tickets here. Because I have local admin privileges, I can get into that spot of memory that has those. Mimikatz, which is what we're going to use here, is a executable that allows us to kind of view that, if we have permission, allows us to view that area of memory and do all kinds of cool stuff with it. So I'm going to go ahead and run it from here. Well, let me move this over. And go back here. So I'm going to cd into downloads, and I'm going to run Mimikatz, right? And it's got a million things it can do. It's a very complicated piece of software, but we're going to do the most common things with it today. So first I want to set up my debugging privilege. Privilege debug. It says OK, because that's what allows me to go look in memory, is that I have the debug privilege, right? So as long as I get that privilege 20 OK, I'm good to go. Now I can dump hashes. So LSA dump :LSA /patch. And this is giving me all of the hashes that this computer knows about. So this is actually not going into memory. This is going into the LSA storage on the computer. So anybody who's logged in recently should have that hash there. So this hash right here is for me. Now I already know my password. So when I type in that password, Windows hashes it in order to generate this. I could potentially take that hash and then go crack it, and we might do that later. Or we can use that hash directly with a overpass the hash attack. Now notice there's there's a few different things here, right? So there's RID, which is the user ID, right? Administrator is always 500, guest is always 501, and then they go from there. Then you have the username, LM and NTLM. Those are two different types of hashes. NTLM is the old style of Windows hashing, right? It's less secure. It's a bad way to do things, and most Windows services will not accept that now. But there are things we can do with it in order to gain like a remote shell, right? And so they just have, okay, so they are just going to have us crack these ones here with Hashcat. Let me grab this one. So I'm going to, again, select it, Control C, and then I'm going to go back to my local machine. Let me just open up a new tab. I'm just going to do it in BloodHound temp for no reason. And the command is hashcat-m1000 rocku.txt. So hashcat-m1000, which is the type of hash that you're trying to crack here. Control-Shift-V to paste it. And then, I don't know why they always do, they do like rocku.txt as if it's in your current directory. Actually, let me do, I'm going to hit enter and then Control C to stop it. If I do locate rocku.txt, you'll see it's here under user share word lists, which is where it probably is going to be for you. So I'm going to hit the up arrow, and now I'm going to give it the path to that user share word lists rocku.txt. Now it's crunching along. Right now it's cranking on it. Okay, and it looks like it cracked it, which obviously it would because we knew what the password was. So it's telling us, okay, this is the password. Let's go ahead, and they want us to do machine 1 and machine 2. So let's find those in here. So here's machine 1. Copy that. Control-Shift-V, and boom. So a very weak password. So this will work for any weak passwords. Let's go back and do machine 2. Wait, is machine 2 here? There we are. Machine 2. Here's machine 2's hash. Right click to copy it. Go back here. Control-Shift-V. Boom, bada boom. And again, a very weak one. Password 1, password 2. So password 1. Let me move this over here. Oh, what is the machine 2 hash? It didn't ask for the... they're tricking me. Submit. There we go. So Mimikatz, that is a very common way that you would attack if you thought there were weak passwords on the machine. Particularly if you get to the domain controller. Boom, bada boom, we're done with dumping hashes. Golden tickets. You guys all remember golden tickets, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, right? So this, again, it's the same thing. It's still Mimikatz. You still need administrative rights. But now we're going to... Oh, I just... let's see, is there history recently closed? There we go. So these tickets that I'm getting, right, this ticket granting ticket, that comes from the domain controller, right, from the Kerberos service. That's a golden ticket. I take the golden ticket and then I request sessions for, for particular services. That's the silver ticket. So the golden ticket attack is I'm going to inject with this service, the Kerberos service, and that's going to allow me to generate my own ticket. And when I generate my own ticket, my own golden ticket, again, in that session key, it encrypts my user ID, my groups. So if I can generate my own golden ticket, I can tell it I'm a member of any group I want, like domain admins, and now I have the privileges of domain admins over the entire network. So we're generating that golden ticket, which in the background, whenever I go to access the service, I'm going to say, hey, I need the ticket for that. Here's my golden ticket, and my golden ticket will say I am a member of domain admins. So that's the way this attack works. It's very effective if you have access to the domain controller, which we do. So this is not something you would do from a workstation usually. You would do this only if you get the domain controller. But the attack is pretty similar. LSA dumped. So we already did privilege debug. So we're going to dump LSA again, but we're saying we want the injection information for the username KRBTGT. I don't know how they get Kerberos from that, but it is what it is. All right. So Control V that in there. What? Oh, Control V. There we are. And I don't blame it because I don't like myself some days. There we go. Boom, bada boom. So now it dumped out all the information about that account, which again is the Kerberos service. And they're telling you the stuff that you need right here. You need to know the domain information, right? Which, let me move this over, is right here. And notice my domain information is a little bit different from theirs. Every time the domain gets updated, it's going to be a little bit different. The user, which is again, Kerberos service. The NTLM hash for that service, which I'm going to use to generate my golden ticket. And I don't have to do anything. I can just tell, Mimikatz to do it for me using Kerberos golden, the user, which is going to be me, the domain, which is controller.local, the SSID number that's up there, and then the NTLM hash, right? And then the ID 500 is the ID I want to give it. I think that's the ID I want to give it. Okay, so let's start with, and again, let me move this over here so I can see kind of both at the same time. So Kerberos golden, because we're generating a golden ticket, / user administrator. I could target another user, / domain controller local / SID. If you recall the SID we had up here, it is this. Let me try to get it without the space there. Boom, bada boom, Control C. And then down here, I'm going to do Control V. And then I need the /KRBTGT : and then the NTLM hash for that. Again, Control C. All right, so it did it. It generated a golden ticket. Now, if I use it, I have to actually use MISC CMD, and it opened a new command with elevated privileges. Now, I already had elevated privileges because I was administrator, so this didn't really do anything for me. But that's how you would use it. Now we can access other machines. So they are going to desktop 1, which you could do, like I said, I could do anyways. So they do two things here. One, they use the dir command can actually work on other machines. Dir / the name of the computer, desktop -1, C $. Well, actually, it can work on shares. If it's not shared, it won't be able to show me anything. What is it? Not desktop 1? What were the names of the other computers that we found? Let me go back up here. All right, let me look over here. What were the names of the other computers that we found? Oh, so this explains a lot. It says, unfortunately, because TryHackMe does not currently support networks, you will be unable to access other machines. I'm trying to figure out, why is their command not working? Because there is no desktop 1. And they also use psexec. By the way, psexec, very useful thing to have in your toolbox. It allows you to execute a command on another machine. In particular, they execute CMD, which gets you a remote shell. But again, because there are no other computers, I can't actually use this golden ticket right now. So we'll click completed and move on about our day. Those sneaky Pete's. Enumeration with the server manager. So again, this is, if I have administrative privileges, if I've been able to move to the controller, the server manager, which is this piece of software that kind of started up right when everything else started up, This allows you to view everything. In a lot of times in our rooting and penetration testing, we only have a shell. But if I can actually remote desktop in, I can do a lot of things. So they explain here, the only way is to RDP in. They're looking at users and groups. So our dashboard doesn't look like this at all. Or does it? Do I need to scroll down? Oh yeah. So everything is here, and you can also get to a lot of it through here. We can also go to manage and look at the properties, and we can go to tools and fire up things like Active Directory users and computers, right? Sites and services, and view that information. All that information that we were getting from PowerView or from BloodHound, we can see all that here and a lot more. So again, Active Directory users and computers is a place you'd probably want to start. Users and computers, because that lists everything in the network. So here we can see those user accounts we found before. We can see the group accounts here, computers, right? Desktop 1, desktop 2. The domain controllers is only the one domain. So there's only 3 computers. This is a relatively small network. We can look at all this information here if we had remote desktop access. What tool allows you to view event logs? Well, let's go over here. And we click under Tools. Makes sense, right? So, Event Viewer. Submit that. It's the thing. Okay. Did it say whoops? Or did it... So the question is, what is the SQL service password? And again, we go back here. If you look at the SQL server, oh, there you go. They're telling you. My password is my password 123 hash. So capital MY password 123 hash. And they told you right there that it was there. So yeah, lots of things that you can actually see by physically looking at the domain. Maintaining access. So they're generating, this is a pretty standard Meterpreter reverse shell. There are other rooms here that talk about getting Meterpreter up and running. I'm not going to take you through this part of it, because again, that's actually something totally separate, but you can set up executables and then set them as services and things that will be automatically run when different machines start up. And then, again, the reverse shell is kind of a crude tool that we use to approximate it in our learning. But if a real attacker was there, they could generate payloads that would reach out to their command and control structure. So I'm actually going to skip this. And then conclusion, more kind of links. Again, so you've learned a few things here. You've learned Mimikatz, you've learned PowerView, and you've learned BloodHound and how to look at Active Directory. And you're probably thinking, I don't feel like I know anything about Active Directory, because it's very big and it just takes a lot of time to get used to it. I don't know if there are other try-hack-me rooms that do this. There are other hack-the-box machines that are domain related. There are, Hack the Box Academy has a Active Directory learning segment. So there are other places that you can learn this stuff. Active Directory is a really important part of most modern networks, so it's a really important thing to understand. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, let me know.